Salutations to you viewers. This is Chico Squared, the Maths and Science Guru, in collaboration with Former Media Educational TV. Right. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the Zimbabwe Schools Examinations Council June 2024 Paper 1 Biology section. So this is going to be a three-part series. This is part 1, where we are looking at the bio section only. And then in the part 2, we're going to be looking at the chemistry section. And then in the part 3, we're going to be looking at the physics section. This lesson is going to be bilingual. I'm going to be using 2 languages as media of communication. I'm going to be using the King's language, English language, and I'm also going to be using our own vernacular, Shona. And it's so that we understand. All right. So, let's look at the questions. So, my questions are project up a screen. It's also to discuss my questions. Why? Nema answers actually, nema concepts are around those questions. So, let's look at question 1. The diagram shows a palisade cell. The function of part X is 2. Right. Check ma palisade cells are one kapa leaf and it. Ukatarisa internal structure of a leaf, the cuticle, upper epidermis, palisade mesophyll, spongy, vascular bundle. Palisade mesophyll layer is immediately below the upper epidermis. And the function of these cells now, those are main photosynthetic cells where they carry photosynthesis. Of course, I wonder my cells under photosynthesis, but my palisade cells no anonyanya photosynthesis. I wonder. So, part X, what is the function? Before you can know the function of part X, you need to know what part X is. Part X is the chloroplast. My chloroplast is a green pigment, the chlorophyll, not shape light. Light is for photosynthesis. Okay? So let's look at the answers. To know the answer in to trap sunlight, maintain the shape of the cell, no. Control the activities of the cell. Shape your cell, maintain one cell wall. It's made up of cellulose. Then control the activities of the cell. Is also one nucleus. Allow substances in and out of the cell. Is not often a cell wall and a cell membrane. Actually, cell membrane is partially permeable. It allows some substances to enter and it disallows other substances not to enter. The answer that we have here, part X, triple light. Not the most appropriate answer. Let's move on to question 2. The diagram shows a food web, right? Pana food web iripo, pana ma organisms wobo aripo pa food web pap. To which organism is a secondary consumer, right? Nyaya idzi ma ecosystems, and an ecosystem is a self-contained system of interdependent organisms in their physical environment. So panatika energy flow ma ecosystem, all the energy originates from the sun, and then my producers, my autotrophs, do not trap energy from the sun or gather my carbohydrates by a process called photosynthesis. Then my primary consumers, my herbivores. My primary consumers, my herbivores. My animals are not my plants, chat. So energy, my producer, my primary consumer, my herbivores. My primary consumers, we are now moving on to the secondary consumers, which are also known as the carnivores. My secondary consumers, my animals are not nyama, and it ndo are my secondary consumers. Anor nyama chet, ano kara, taravana shumba, vanor nyama, my secondary consumers. Sangatar se konati, pane zvese zvatina zvezva, and it organism inogona the secondary consumer ndiani iri kuratidza kuti iri kurya nyama. Ukatarisa ma arrows aya, and it handiri kuona kuti frog yakapointa pa wild dog. Goat yakapointa pa wild dog. Rabbit yakapointa pa wild dog. Zoreva kuti wild dog inorya dzose dziri 3 idzi. Ende yose yenyama. Ani munopawa. Saka wild dog is the organism which is a secondary consumer. Ndo inorya nyama. And it okay. Right, let's move on to the next one. Which human characteristics shows discontinuous variation. Right, variation iri paviri, kune continuous ne discontinuous. Variation basically tutara ma differences ano exista pa ma organisms. Mwari achisika zvinhu zvose haana kuzvisika zvakafanana, akasika zvakasiyana. Isu vanhu takasiyana futi, vamwe vatema, vamwe vatsvuku, vamwe vatete, vamwe vakobvu. Ukatarisa ma-organisms ese, whether ma-avocado, whether ma-mangoes, etc. Ose ma-organisms haana kusikwa akafanana, akasiyana. Ndiyo inonzi variation. But kusiyana kwacho kune two types, handiti? Pane kusiyana kunonzi continuous. Continuous variation we're talking about. If variation iyaye yekuti tine ma-intermediates akawanda zvakafanana noti ndikati toda kumeasure kana height yevanhu muclass. Uchiona kuti height dzevanhu dzenyu dzakasiyana siyana 1.3, 1.7, 1.4, 1.3. Discontinuous variation haina ma-intermediates akawanda. For example, ndikatora zvinhu zvakaita se-tongue rolling, it's either you can tongue roll or you cannot. It's either une ma-earlobes or you don't have. It's either you are male or female. There are no intermediates dzakawanda. Ndo inonzi discontinuous variation. So discontinuous variation panapa ndi sex. Right, sex ndo discontinuous. Sex ndo discontinuous variation. Right. Next. Let's move on to question 4. And during digestion, the enzyme amylase converts. Right, digestion is the breaking down of large complex food molecules into small, simple and soluble ones that can be absorbed in the bloodstream. Digestion inoitikira munonzi alimentary canal, and in the alimentary canal munanonzi enzymes, three-dimensional globular proteins, called biological catalysts and speed up the rate of a chemical reaction. All right. So enzyme inonzi amylase inowanika mu mouth, inogadzirwa nanonzi salivary glands. Tine enzyme amylase yemu mouth inogadzirwa ne salivary gland. Then tine amylase yeku pancreas. And the purpose ye amylase converter starch to maltose. So starch is converted to maltose by the enzyme amylase. Question 5. And the kwashiorkor is a deficiency disease caused by a lack of what? Kuna anonzi ma deficiency diseases, and it arukonzerwa ne malnutrition, and it yekuleka something. Ma deficiency diseases akasiyana siyana. Kwashiorkor, marasmus, goiter, ana scurvy, ana night blindness, ma rickets, etc., etc. Right? Kwashiorkor is deficiency disease yekuleka protein. Deficiency disease yekuleka protein ndo inonzi kwashiorkor. And I'm sure you are aware of my symptoms a kwashiorkor, and it. Okay. Question 6. An experiment was set up to investigate a factor of photosynthesis as shown in the diagram. Right. Chakutanga nje kuti yo unofana kutanga wa identify kuti factor iri kuinvestigate wa apa ndeipi. Because remember tine ma factors akawanda no affect photosynthesis. Kune light intensity, kune carbon dioxide, kune temperature, kune water availability, chlorophyll, etc., etc. So apana makambotanga ti identify kuti factor iri kuinvestigate wa ndeipa. Andiri kuona pane shizha rakavharwa ne plastic bag. Kuvhara shizha ne plastic bag zviri kurati tiri kuavoida kuti carbon dioxide isapinda through the stomata. Because carbon dioxide is a gas, it enters through the stomata, yoenda kuma palisade mesophyll cells, then koitika chi ma biochemical reactions anoitika ikoko anozoproduce chi oxygen nema carbohydrates. Sa apa pakavharwa ne plastic kureva kuti tiri kuavoida carbon dioxide. Then mukati makaiswa NaOH, sodium hydroxide solution. The purpose of this sodium hydroxide solution is to absorb carbon dioxide. But tichifanira make sure kuti shizha iro rakavharwa ne plastic bag hatina kuvharira imwe carbon dioxide mukati. Saka sodium hydroxide basa rayo nderekuya kuzokwekweta, kuzosveta carbon dioxide yose inenge yavharirwa mukati meplastic bag umu. Ndokuti ma results edu azoita accurate. Tizokwanisa isusu kuita maguts ekusumuka tichitaura kuti ladies and gentlemen, carbon dioxide is really necessary for photosynthesis because taita experiment yakadai so. So absorption of carbon dioxide is the function of the sodium hydroxide solution. Diagram shows part of the human respiratory system in which part A, B, C, or D does gaseous exchange take place. Right. Respiratory system is responsible for taking in air and taking out air. Taking in air is known as inhalation. Taking out air is known as exhalation. So among my parts A, the human respiratory system, tinana nasal passage, tinana larynx, tinana epiglottis, tinana trachea, tinana ma bronchus, tinana ma bronchioles, then tinana ma alveolus, called my air sacs. So A way to pan up, trachea, then B anons ma intercostal muscles, and my ribs. Then C is the bronchiole, then D is the alveolus or the air sacs. So gaseous exchange occurs within the alveolus or the air sacs. So 7D is the answer. Let's look at question 8. And the blood capillaries have dash and the valves. A. That's a lie. My valve, I know my vein. Because my vein, they carry blood away from the heart. My arteries, they carry blood to the heart. So my vein can carry blood away from the heart. So the blood is in a low pressure. So the blood is actually moving lackadaisically like a zombie. So there's a need for my valve and prevent the backflow of blood. So my vein and also. Then very large lumen no one got my veins foot because remember my veins are going to carry blood with a low pressure. So low pressure blood is generated through a larger lumen panocross and a blood rache pap. And the walls that are 1 cell thick a hair. My capillary and my walls are 1 cell thick. Because the capillary is the only blood vessel which allows substances to enter into it. My artery haabvumidzwa kuti chinhu chibve panze chipinda direct. My vein haatendere izvozvo futi. But kana part D, and the muscle layers which are very thick. My muscle layers are very thick. My arteries. My arteries, they carry blood away from the heart. And my arteries are oxygenated blood except for the pulmonary artery and the umbilical artery. So my artery has a very small lumen and a thick elastic fibrous layer who withstand the high blood pressure, because high blood pressure in my arteries here, it leaves the arteries vulnerable to bursting. So to avoid that impending catastrophe, my arteries akagadzirwa ane thick elastic fibrous layer kunze. Right. So the answer here dupa 8 in the C, my walls that are 1 cell thick. 9. Which component of blood carries hormones across the body? Kati mbotaura ichi chinonzi ma hormone. Ma chemical messengers anoproduced the endocrine gland. Ma chemical messengers anenge achienda kunoacta panenonzi target organ. Obva anoita bring about ma changes. Alright, we're going to go through my endocrine glands atina mu human body mamwe acho nemamwe ma hormones anoproduced. One in a pituitary gland no one can brain produce ma hormones wobo ana ACTH ana ADH etc. Then in a thyroid gland produce ana growth hormone ana thyroxine and then tinanos ma islets of Langerhans and one can pancreas ma alpha cells ma beta cells and produce insulin ne glucagon. Insulin do hormone ineta homeostatic function yekuita say yeku convert excess glucose to glycogen. So any problem inowanika pa insulin kana pa ma islets of Langerhans ma beta cells result in a condition inonzi diabetes mellitus called sugar diabetes, and one of the most cruel diseases, sugar diabetes. And I will never wish it on anyone. It's a very, very cruel disease, that one. Right? Then it overtaita ma hormones that produce ma gonads called ma sex organs. Ma hormone akada sana testosterone inogadzirwa nema testis, wana oestrogen ana progesterone, ma female hormones anoproduced nema female gonads. Right? Component of blood inotakura ma hormones across the body, plasma. A. Plasma is responsible for transportation of hormones across the body. Ma-platelets anita blood clotting, red blood cells got ma-erythrocytes anita inonzi, they transport oxygen. If you still remember the first topic in combined science and biology, the cell structure and function, pantaronya red blood cells, ma-erythrocytes, oba describe red blood cells are biconcave discs, non-nucleated, contain a protein, hemoglobin, etc., etc. And my white blood cells are responsible for maintaining the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the body by fighting against my pathogens, my disease-causing organisms, and viringa style and pattern in human body. Let's look at the next question, 10. Diagram shows the general structure of a flower. Right, the flower and all reproductive organ in my plants. Remember, my plants, they undergo sexual reproduction and they also undergo asexual. Sexual reproduction, where we involve two sex cells, got my gametes, and as it fuse during a process called fertilization. My flowers, to not gonna consider as my hermaphrodites. Because the hermaphrodite into the organism in a two organs except for one position. But the flower in a male part and a female part is for one position. Male part on the stamen, female part on the carpel. Stamen consists of the anther and the filament. Carpel, stigma, style, ovary, ovules, and it. So upon a process on the pollination, my pollen grains are not transferred from the anther, change up a stigma, then fertilization happens, etc., etc. Let's move on to the question now. Question with which part A, B, C, or D develops into a fruit after fertilization? Part not develop into a fruit after fertilization. The ovary. Because panatica fertilization in my plants, the rest of the flower dries out. And after the rest of the flower dries out, the ovary changes into a fruit and the ovules change into my seeds. And then my ovary and under my fruits and fruits are not. So maybe one of the days, kutura zoto wadziza unokeda. Wana ukasikopa msika ndofa uskopa bvunzo ne makati ma ovary enyarita mari. But haringa akatsukira zviri nani. Asuka roho yako kwena ndipo anditi. Right. Let's move on to question 11. The diagram shows the male reproductive system. Right, male reproductive system ira papa. Right? Which part A, B, C, or D is cut or tied during sterilization? Right, got to is sterilization. Sterilization is a method of contraception, permanent. Can start contraception, my methods are to prevent unwanted pregnancies. Kune ma pills, kune ma spermicides, kune vasectomy, ndo irutaurwa panapa vasectomy, nemwe nonzi tubal ligation ndeye kuma female and it. All right. Kuna na loop vaya, kune ma natural methods akaita sana withdrawal method, nemama methods akaita sana inonzi calendar method yekuverenga menstrual cycle yaya kuti ovulation yakamira sei, zvekufamba sei, pane green light ndepapi, pane red light ndepapi. My methods of contraception akasiyana nana condom futhi vaya my methods of contraception. I to discuss panapa the sterilization. It's a permanent method. Yekuti after yaitika sterilization there is no going back. Akusisina hauchafu wakazvarisa futhi koupenyu hwako hwese. Saka sterilization involves cutting the sperm duct. Sperm duct inokatwa kana kuti inosungwa during sterilization. Wobva waziva kuti zvavharana akusisina mbeu yako ichasara panyika panapa after process iyoyo yaitwa iyoyi handiti. So to answer this question we need to identify kunoona kuti pane sperm duct yacho ndepapi. Ndo patira kuona hande A ichicho. A looks like a urethra. Ndo pipe inenge iri mukati mepenis inenge ichifambisa masperms nechi ne urine and it. Then D looks like a prostate gland. Then B ndo sperm duct do yacho inenyaya dzechiyoyi Doing the sterilization. Then you see it's a ureter, it's actually coming from the kidneys, and it doing a urine kumeo reproductive system. Right. So this is what we have at this point in time, and it is my hope and expectation that all is well and you are understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, this is Chico Squared, your host, and the crew behind the scenes at Former Media Productions. Be blessed and stay blessed. I salute you. Satyasangana pa part 2, taku discuss a chemistry section, and then part 3 again, taku discuss a physics section. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Be blessed. I salute you.